of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll call roll. Ms. Fosberg? Here. Mr. You want me to call Bob or Robert or Bob? Okay, here. Mr. Baroni? Here. Mr. Lavelle? Here. And Mr. Smith? Here. And Samantha, you down there? What's your husband not here today? He thought about it. He thought about it, yeah, but you have assignments at home for him, right? Okay, makes sense. We also have Gary DeMaster with us from the building department, and we also have our counselor, Christine, is with us also too, for questions and to keep this board moving along. Thank you. The way we run our meetings, I will invite the petitioner up, come up to the podium, sign in, and state the reason that you're in front of us. It looks like that we have 3 petitions filed. Sometimes we combine them, but I believe we're going to handle each one of these separate. So we'll move in that direction. And once you give your reason that you're in front of them for the first one, so I'm going to come back to this board. When it comes back to this board, each one of us, if we have a question, we'll ask a question at that period of time. Then it'll go back to yourself. Anyone in the public that wishes to speak on it will do so. And then it'll come back to this board, and we will move along with a motion, either approval or denial. And we're going to cut anything off from the public, but we'll let you speak about anything that you want regarding these petitions before we make a motion on it. When you're ready, please start, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jordan McBain, property owner of the subject property.
Is your mic on there?
There's a button right there. There you go.
There you go. Thanks,
Okay, repeating, I'm Jordan McBain, property owner of the subject property. I seek your guidance on deficiency of the subject matter. I have about 20 pages of written representation to you on the record. I think the time would be better spent having a conversation rather than me reading it at you. Are there time limits, or is there any constraints that would make it more practical for me to read it at you than simply to discuss it?
The reason is you submitted these with the building department. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
We all get a printout of what's submitted.
Yep.
Either we get it electronically or we get it printed, I think mostly electronically. So what happens there is it is each board member's responsibility to review this and read this before the meeting. So we have everything that you have submitted to this point, we have a copy of, each one of us. Am I correct in saying that? Thank you.
Understood. I'll proceed under the assumption that there's no need for me to read it, and my representations are largely on the record.
Thank you,
Then I'll just speak to the generalities. The first variance request, I think, well, first I note that I've only paid for 2. You've decided to separate the questions of law into a third variance request. I paid for 2. I think, would you agree that that is sufficient?
Well, we have them listed, we have them 6, 7, and 8, at least on our agenda. It'll be 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Now, if you wish to combine the last 2, we could probably do that.
Yeah. I have no wish to pay for the questions of law, simply because the questions of law as structured in your ordinances are not required to be submitted as a variance.
My understanding, in order to come before us, is you need to pay the fee.
Yeah.
We're not going to go ahead and bill you additionally after the fact, because we received the petition, you signed it and filled it out. So basically, everything, fees that were incurred to come before us has been satisfied.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's my understanding
Please do.
that the fees have been completely paid, and I would recommend that you treat each of the separate variances separate.
Thank you.
There are different considerations for each.
Okay. Then
Understood.
we're gonna consider each one as a separate one, and will be no additional cost to yourself. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you, sir.
So which is the first subject? I don't know the ordering.
I will give you the agenda that we have in front of us. And this would be the first one.
Thank you.
And that's the first one, and you will hold on to that and move forward. Thank you.
All right. So the floodplain variance is probably the easiest variance. You can see in my representations to you in the appendices, a wetland study from a wetland expert and a letter from a surveyor, a professional surveyor in the state of Michigan. The professional surveyor conducted a survey, notwithstanding the FEMA's present maps, which show that the property is maybe 50% or 60% floodplain. In her findings, she found that the entire property, in fact, was floodplain. So the property is 100% floodplain, and per the wetland study, 100% wetlands. The property is completely downland wetlands. If I understand, Gary has gone to the property. If you do have a look at it, it might be worthwhile for you to have a look at the property just as a drive-by. If you do so, you will see that the front of the property is covered.
Once again, I mean to interrupt, but that's part of our responsibility before we see these petitions.
Understood.
Is to review the subject matter.
Okay.
So I appreciate your concerns on that, and each of those board members should be diligent in going through that process.
What you'll see is that there are very tall wetland grasses at the front of the property. And I believe per the placement of the tiny house on my map within the appendices, that those grasses will preclude almost 100% visibility of the tiny house. So if it were something that would cause someone offense if they were to see it in full force, then in fact they are not able to do so for the most part. Tiny houses, or about the one that I have, is 10 feet tall. And those wetland grasses are easily taller than that, even with the gravel pad added on. The floodplain analysis of the septic system, septic treatment at the property is limited. There is no septic treatment from the township at the property. The only other alternative then is there's no sewage treatment from the township at the road, whereas there is a possibility somehow, perhaps.
Let me hold you up for a minute. The first item seems to be associated with the floodplain district. Am I correct in that, hazard district?
That's how you have it on yours.
That's how I have it. So
I don't
basically, if we're going to go ahead and take them each individual, then I want to stay with the conversation regarding flood hazard district variance. So anything to do with the floodplain hazard is what I wish to entertain.
Okay.
Before we move on
Understood.
to the other ones.
Okay, my
Thank you, sir.
apologies. The hazards to the floodplain, as I submitted in my written representations, the property, my plan for the property with the house was approved by EGLE, which is Michigan's authority on wetlands and floodplain areas. So I think that is highly suggestive evidence that in fact there is no threat to the floodplain from these plans. The nature of a house on wheels is it can be removed in the event of a flood or in a flood season. And otherwise, your solicitor in some of her correspondence to me noted concerns of nuisances from a tiny house. Michigan state law allows townships to designate certain issues. Sir.
Okay, I think the townhouse issue should be on the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I'm going to give you a minute to catch your breath, and I'm going to bring it back to the board here, and we're going to ask some questions.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, we're going to just deal with the floodplain hazard district. Counselor, am I getting that move? Thank you. That's what we're dealing with now.
Can I ask a question of the council?
Please do, yes.
What's the standard for granting a variance on a floodplain? Oh, sorry. What's the standard for granting a variance regarding the floodplain hazard district? What criteria should we use?
The criteria is set out in 7.15. First thing you need to do is determine whether or not the purpose is being met. Then you need to go through all the factors in 7.15C. You need to evaluate any technical drawings or submissions from the applicant. You need to determine whether or not there's a danger the materials may be swept into other properties, whether or not there's any danger to life and property from erosion damage, and so on.
Thank you.
You got it.
You still have the floor if you need it, Mr. Smith.
Nope. I'm good.
Mr. LaBelle, please.
Is this the time we're going to talk about waste removal? Being as it's a floodplain, I know that you had, the gentleman, Mr. McBain. First, I'd like to start off by saying, what a wonderful letter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to do the research and to, and to write a long letter like that. You had mentioned in your opening that, in your opening comments that waste removal from the home, as well as water. What is your intention in a floodplain?
There's no sewage treatment from the township at the road. Construction of a septic system, I don't believe is feasible because it will require fill. So my plan has a porta potty on the place, and I guess effectively to treat the areas as a campground.
Okay. What about potable water?
Portable water?
Potable water you can drink.
So there is water available from the city. I would prefer not to use that and to get a well installed. That is part of my plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Samantha, please.
Could you come back to me?
No problem. Anytime, no problem. Ms. Browning, sir, Sam?
My question, I guess, is I've gone through the extent of what you've submitted. I don't see a plot plan of any sort of where you're going to actually set the structure. And then secondly, in what extent will there be a foundation under the structure in that wetlands? I'm sure you can't get compaction or anything on a footing, so I'm not
No,
sure.
the plan was large-scale aggregate to create a stabilizing base with maybe some smaller aggregate on top. The plan is in appendix, and I'm trying to get to my Eagle permit application, Appendix E.
There is a drawing. Has anybody else seen a drawing of a plot plan that I'm unaware of? I don't.
Gary, anything, please?
Nothing has been applied for through the building department.
Okay, so there's really no documents on file, correct?
Correct.
Okay, anything additional, Sam?
And then the property is zoned agricultural,
Yes.
so in order to put a residential structure into that situation, what is your plan to change the zoning?
Well, your sheet here says it's zoned A1 agricultural hyphen residential, so I don't plan on, the entire point of the plan is no structure, no permanent structure, simply the tiny house and maybe a chicken coop.
Okay.
That's it, thank you. Ms. Fosberg, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to council, a couple things come to mind. One is, can someone put a well there when there's city water at the road? I realize it's probably a health department question, but do you know?
It is a health department question,
Okay.
but I'm not sure, Gary may be able to shed light on what our ordinance requires.
From past experience, if water is available, they generally will not give you a well.
And then I didn't quite understand, you want the variance? The petition for this is a variance?
A
For-
variance to allow building a house on wheels
Just, okay.
with
that was-
no other buildings on the structure, on the property.
We're sticking to the floodplain hazard in the area of the district, basically. That's where we're at this juncture of it right now.
Right, and so, Mr. Chair, just some clarification then. I'm not just looking at the document for
Right.
that petition. Where, can you help me?
Where, I guess the question arises with this particular item is it's going to be in a floodplain hazard. and we're seeing if it's allowable in there. We're gonna move on to the next one, which it says, can they have a trailer or a mini house on property? So we're pretty much trying to address the floodplain issue on this property.
Correct.
Counselor, please.
And if I may, it may be a good time to request some information from your floodplain manager with respect to the purpose of this section.
That was my I was gonna go there, well, not quite next, because I want to get our board members first. And I know has a vast knowledge sitting down there, we'll get them in a minute. Bob, I think your sea legs are ready to ask the question, if you so do so.
Yeah, I'm just getting my feet wet in this area, not a pun intended, but I did go out to your property. I respected the no trespassing sign, so I could only go from the road and looking in. There's already a structure on there. You got a porta potty with some kind of lean-to device or home?
Oh, there's a permitted power pole, which in fact was submitted to the building department, so it is permitted.
But-
Otherwise, there's nothing else.
And you don't have a porta potty, John? Or
No,
porta-
yeah, I don't have authority to do anything there. I'm not gonna spend money on it until I know you're not gonna.
Okay, because
Chase me
we're
with
we're
the
not
stick.
looking at I must not be looking at the same piece of property because it's right from your address. From the driveway, I looked at the pole with your address,
Yeah.
the roadway. There's a structure straight out from there and then the porta potty to the left. And
That must
not
be
your-
the other property
that's your other property?
east.
All right. Because then yours is completely, the
So does that-
wetlands to the right of that, to the west of that.
On the, I
The west of
don't
that.
have the picture in on the
All
south
right.
side of the
All right,
property.
I just want to make sure. I just was trying to figure out what the
There
property
are
looked like.
no structures other
Okay.
than a permitted power pole on the plant.
Okay,
On the
well,
property.
thank you. That's why I was just trying to figure out the property that I was looking at. All right, thank you.
At this point, the chair doesn't have any questions? Anything this time?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around exactly what the request is, and maybe the board can help me out with this as well.
This is, I'm gonna kick it over to our floodplain manager.
Okay.
Okay, please.
Okay, what is your question?
I guess if we are to approve this first item, what would that allow Mr. McBain to do? Or what variance is he, from what to what?
A variance isn't actually required to build in the floodplain, as long as you build to FEMA's standard, either a flood-proof crawl, a engineered fill, but, nothing's been applied for, so I don't know what he's looking for. But you do not need a variance to build in the floodplain. You cannot build in the floodway at all. State law and federal law does not allow it. But to build in, as long as you build within the township ordinances and building codes, and you build it to FEMA standards, it can be built in. So a variance is not actually required to build in the floodplain.
I may comment. The fact that a variance is not required to build in the floodplain may be true, but I think it misses the point. The challenge with the property is fill and building in the floodplain. And I will have to go back to Eagle and get permission to do that. I will need permission to do that from you. Your own ordinances say that trying to fill a floodplain is not something that is well looked upon. So the challenge is trying to build in the floodplain. I submit that the costs of doing so are impractical, and trying to do so, in fact, to put a permanent house on the property that can easily be flooded, notwithstanding FEMA's permissions to do so, is an absurd nonsense, because it will just get flooded and damaged, whereas a house that can be removed will serve the property better and the property owner better.
I understand the point, but using a monetary value of some sort does not constitute a reason for us to approve the variance.
It does. It does.
I'm not gonna get into discussion over.
I actually have case law cited, sir, in my written representations to you that says quite the contrary. The costs of doing so are a hardship.
We'll get back to that. I'm not gonna discuss it for the time. Carrie, can you elaborate any more on this?
Is Gary a part of this panel? I think he's just a regular person, right?
He is our building inspector.
Is he a professional engineer?
Beg your pardon, sir?
Is he a professional engineer?
I don't believe so, Gary, you professional?
I am not a professional engineer.
Then you are not an expert, sir.
Gary is allowed on this board, Gary has been on this board with us.
Has he been appointed to the board?
He is an employee of the town.
Has he been appointed to
With
the
all due
board?
respect, Mr. Chairman,
Please do, thank you.
this meeting's being run by the chairman. All right, any questions you have, you can direct to him.
Ma'am, you're
And-
just interrupting the flow right now. We are having a conversation. It's not that bad.
Excuse me, with me, please. All I'm saying is out of past practice and out of law, Gary is allowed to ask questions. We're not here, we're all basically volunteers. You know, basically, we all have different professions. That's what the ZBA is made of. We're from different areas of the community. I'm an accountant. What's that? I'm an accountant. I know next to me we have HR, we have an individual as a builder, electrician, real estate, and we're from all individual walks of life in this community. And the way the ZBA is set up is that is a mixture of the community. We are representing the community at large because you wish to do something that needs a variance, it's not within our ordinance. So you come to us, the committee, sir.
This-
And you want to read, that's what a ZBA is. And
Gary's-
we have to bring, excuse me for a second, we need to bring a professional in place that we feel, we actually brought counselor in, we don't really have an attorney with us all the time. If we needed the township engineer, we could have requested that, and that would have been sitting with us also. We have the authority of the CBA to bring in any experts we need, but we're not professionals in this, sir.
Gary is not, Gary's decision is being reviewed. You have him sitting as if he were a member of this panel, and it is
Gary,
inappropriate.
please, sir. Gary is not a member. As you notice, I had everyone ask their question first. Then I went to Gary. Gary cannot lead this board. I lead this board, and each member can ask their questions. We ask Gary when we want to answer a question, because once I go back to it, we're not professionals in this field. We are citizens of this community.
If it's been established that Gary is not a professional engineer, then he is not a professional and therefore not qualified to comment as a professional on building standards, merely to come here and represent the township on that part. His decision is being reviewed. It is entirely inappropriate for him to sit and to participate in this manner. I'll leave it at that. My objection is on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. On that, we will then move on to, it is a public hearing. So we don't have a large audience, but I am obligated to open it up to the public. Anyone wish to speak on it, please come forward, stand at the podium and speak on it. Once again, note for the record that we entertain any comments from the public. I don't believe we received any communications. Any communications you're aware of? I know you're here all the time.
Yeah,
I'm
none
not.
that I'm aware of.
None you're aware of. Okay, thank you. Which, that's the way we wanted to handle that one.
You're opening it to the subject, to the general public, but I have not addressed all the points on your agenda here. The addendum to the variances has not been spoken to.
We're still on the first one. Is that what
Oh, okay.
we're still on the first one?
Okay. you
We
want-
will entertain B and we entertain C from the handout that I presented with you earlier, sir. Thank you. We have entertained from the public. We have established the effect that we do not have any communications. Counselor, anything you wish to speak on at this time?
Only that when you do make a motion, it should be specific. It should address the factors set forth in 7.15. It should indicate whether or not you believe you have received the required information to make your decision with the factors in 7.15. And if you would like to know the purpose of 7.15, your floodplain manager is here and he can tell you why it's even in the ordinance.
Okay. On that note, I will give the floor to Gary on that one, DeMasters, on the floodplain issue. If you could speak briefly on that? We don't
Could you
have all
speak
night.
to his credentials first, please?
This is the individual we
He's the
have to give us.
Excuse me, one second.
Please do.
He is the township's floodplain.
Your designation
Expert.
as such does not make him such. You can hire anyone off the street to fill these positions these townships
Not
fill.
correct.
It is
he's-
to police
Okay,
officers.
okay,
Hold on.
I'm not to get,
I'm gonna talk, and then you can talk.
please, I don't want to get into
Well,
a
no,
match over this.
I know.
Please do.
I wanna-
I'll
I have
give you a
something I wanna
minute,
say.
That's it.
Gary is yes, an employee of the township, but he is also takes tests and is qualified as a professional building official. That's his title. So he is.
His
he's a
title is
qualified
professional
expert.
building official.
Qualified expert, that's all I
Again,
have
you
to say.
can give him such status if you like, but the fact that he needs some sort of credential to claim to be a professional.
Okay.
And education.
I'm gonna cut off for a minute here. Once again, going back to what I said earlier, we're citizens of the community. It's only one bit of what we're gonna take, what Gary says, the master says, other information that we received from you, site, we went out and took a look at it. It's not, Gary says, is the rule. It's only one piece when we go into a decision-making process. So that is just one piece. We're not gonna dwell on that. And on that note, before we get interrupted again, Gary, I want to answer that question I asked you earlier. Please do.
Ask the question again.
Now I forgot.
What is floodplain control for?
Thank you,
It is,
please
it
do.
is to protect property
Okay,
so that flood damage doesn't occur and flood insurance isn't used.
so basically, it's trying to keep a handle on that for the community, so we're able to insure people. We're not like some other
We're
states in our
part of the
union that.
NFPI, which is the National Floodplain Insurance Program, and that's why we have to enforce FEMA's rules to stay in that program,
Okay.
to protect property and limit damage caused by floods.
And due to the fact of Chesterfield is a waterfront community, and we have Salt River, and we have other areas, we do have our share of water table
There are
issues, correct?
floodplain and floodways all over the state, highland, lowland, and
Correct,
it's
yes.
all controlled by FEMA's
And-
regulations.
And if we don't control it on the local level, we could get out of control on this, and it could affect our premiums, insurance, and everything of that nature.
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to establish. And once again, that's only one bit of what we will move on in this one, and I want the board to fully understand it too. Okay, I'm gonna go to my right. Any additional questions, please?
I don't.
Okay? To my left? Anything you wish to add at this time, sir?
I imagine we have quite a lot more to discuss. No, thank you. I'm not on that per subpoint.
Thank you, sir. On that note, I will call for a motion. The maker of the motion, please state your reason for approval or denial.
Oh, wait, please.
Please, I am in the decision-making process right here, sir. Also state the reason for it, any type of subsections that should be mentioned, any type of additional information that needed to be mentioned with the motion. I will need a motion being made, and then I will need a motion being supported. And then we will move on our yea or nay on it. What's the board's pleasure?
Excuse me, sir. I
Yes,
raised
sir.
an objection. You gave me the option to speak on these points, but now it seems you're going to a motion for decisions.
Well-
And it was my understanding that these subpoints would all be addressed, and I spoke to that when I gave,
Sir, let me, what are you referencing, sir? We're still gonna talk about the other two.
so we have 5.824 ordinance 7.2 D2 zoning board of appeals, applicant's written request for all three petitions, whatever that means, zoned A1 agricultural residential, then you have addendum to variances.
We're gonna, you see the sheet that we handed you? We're just on A. We're just moving on A.
Right.
We're just moving on to flood.
So I was speaking to the subpoints. We have not addressed all the subpoints within A.
Okay, what subpoints would you least, I will pull back on the motion request. What subpoints, we are talking about A at the current moment. What other subpoints would you wish to address?
I don't understand what 5.824 means, ordinance 7.2 D2. I can't speak to those points. 7.2D2 is familiar to me, but 7.D2 relates to the building official's failure to forward my zoning requests, variance requests, forthwith per the ordinances, per his own ridiculous ego.
Petitioner, I wish not to bring personalities in here.
Well, your
Please-
personalities are causing the problems, because I would have come
Sir,
here
sir,
happily on a normal
I-
tone, but your building official has done nothing but obstruct and fail to engage me in a proper manner, me and my solicitor, as I've noted. So and the fact that he's sitting there with you right now is outrageous. His decisions are being reviewed right now.
His decisions are only a part of the equation, sir. I'm still gonna go back and I'm going to call for the motion.
We
on
haven't
A.
spoken to all the subpoints yet.
Sir, what would you like to speak on? Which one would you like to speak on then?
I'd like to jump in for a second.
Please do.
I think 5.8.24 is referring to the date, today's date, and I think this is just the title of the attachment.
I'll go through A, B, and C, but I don't understand what these sub-things are, so I'll just rely on my record so far. If your intent is to move, I'd ask that you please inform me that you're going to do so before I cede another opportunity to speak.
Please do.
Right,
I will give you several more minutes to speak on these.
Thank
Please-
you.
Please take your time. Thank you, sir.
Your ordinances state even within the flood variance procedures, the considerations of raising tides or raising flood levels for neighbors. It's not simply a question of insurance. The floodplain is meant to protect the other people in the areas from changes to the floodplain characteristics. If I start filling the property in order to build a house and a proper septic system, then I will add substantial fill to the property. This could quite reasonably impact a neighbor who is presently relying on the floodplain staying in its current form. This is a very sound basis to reject a building application. So, even your solicitors, some of your solicitors' correspondence seem to intimate that even my plans might be deemed a concern for raised floodplain levels. As I said, building in a floodplain is foolish nonsense. It's nice that FEMA has provided standards for doing so, but to establish a property, a house, worth $100,000 in a zone that's known that could quite reasonably flood, and given current climate change issues that are arising, those issues will become more pressing. To build a house that's permanently affixed to the ground so that the township can enjoy taxation value from it, when a house could be planted on the property that could be removed easily by wheels, I just don't, yes, sir.
I think we're getting into the next one.
Well, that's the problem. I just don't know what to speak to here. We're talking about
I
floodplain.
believe we spoke to the floodplain hazard district. We will talk about the tiny house on wheels, the next one.
Well, I would imagine that the variance for a floodplain would have to balance the considerations of what my intent is the variance that I'm seeking is to plant the tiny house on the property. I mean, absent that, you can't make a variance.
We fully understand your position and what you're trying to accomplish this evening, sir. But I believe we're at an impasse where we should actually move on the
Well, I haven't,
A,
some of these
which
points
is
that I'm
also-
raising are new.
I'll give you another couple more minutes on this, sir, and then we're gonna have to move on with it. I appreciate your time, appreciate your energy, but let's please stick to the point, sir.
I beg to differ that I'm varying from the point. I'm entirely speaking directly to the point.
I understand 100% what you, sir. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just wish to get all the information out.
So to build a house in the first place, in order to install a septic system, will require substantial fill. I cannot put a septic system in the floodplain. It is not allowed per Macomb County. It can, and the idea of providing fill in order to put a septic system in still raises questions in my mind on flooding issues, that the septic field will be in close proximity to heavy water areas. The fact that I have to fill in order to put a septic system on the property does add raises threats to the characteristics of the floodplain, and the fill itself will require substantial mitigations. You've made your determination that monetary amounts are not to be considered in variances. My objection's on the record. I won't speak to that anymore.
Okay, I am move forward on it, sir. I believe we have discussed it. We have discussed it on our level. We have give you the opportunity to speak on this particular issue, and I'm going to bring it back to the board, and I'm going to call for the motion. Maker of the motion, please state your reason of approval or denial. Please be very detailed on your motion. Any type of ordinance or any type of sections be cited, and what's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, is it too late for me to ask a question?
No, please do. I want to get everything answered. Please do.
If you wouldn't mind, please, you know, I'm going through our floodplain variance form here. And under section 7.15C, do you have that handy? sir?
I don't have the ordinances in front of me.
Can I bring my laptop to you?
Please do. Just, you have one here. You have a hard copy? We'll let you review this. Thank you, sir.
7.15 C,
C, and then there's numbers 1 through 11 there.
yes.
If you wouldn't mind just kind of going through those and how you're going to mitigate any kind of, if you could answer those questions. For instance, the danger that materials may be swept into other lands to the injury of others. And the one that really comes to mind to me, or you know, it really raises a question to me is being as it's in a floodplain, and I can't find the number again, is how emergency vehicles could, if in fact you had an issue, you know, you got hurt.
Yep.
And if it's in a floodplain, and how would emergency vehicles get to you? You know, you had mentioned that you were talking about bringing some large aggregate in and putting small aggregate on top.
Correct.
But, you know, you also said that you're not going to cause or do anything in the floodplain to cause the water to, you know, go onto other people's property. How would an emergency vehicle get to you? And if you wouldn't mind just going through those and just,
Sure.
you know, kind of highlight your thoughts on what you think you would do if in fact, you know, something did arise.
So the Eagle plan has 100 yards of fill. So it's not no fill, but the fill doesn't require any mitigations. Your Eagle will permit up to 300 yard before mitigations are required. And their finding was that there was no threat from it. And again, I submit that is fairly determinative for your purposes, people that actually have education on the subject matter, Gary. The danger that materials may be swept in other lands, the materials that will be on the property are in fact the aggregate. I don't think that's likely to be removed. The house itself, well, the entire point of the variance is that the house can be removed, right? So that will easily be removed. The porta potty will be at the very front of the land. The risk of flotation, one hopes, is low. The chicken coop, and actually the plan has a fence around it. So the entire property, not the entire property, and the entire property other than the floodplain will be fenced. So the chances of removal are mitigated, at least by it, I would think likely improbable. The danger to life property due to flooding or erosion damage, I imagine this is where you speak to emergency vehicles. The point will be that a 10,000-pound tiny house can be driven on it, so the aggregate should be capable of supporting a emergency vehicle, maybe not a fire truck. But the house will be placed at the front of the road. There's no fire hydrants that I understand within the area. I don't know. I actually have a property that has no fire hydrants around it. So I don't know if the fire department brings water and then pumps it. But the tiny house will be at the front of the road over the grasses. Fire hose should be able to reach. The susceptibility of the proposed facility and its contents to flood damage and the effect of such damage on the individual owner. So this is speaking to my concerns. Again, the value in having a tiny house on wheels on the property is that can it be removed. So in fact, this point helps me. in my view. The importance of the services provided the proposed facility to the community. I submit I am not providing any, well, actually, I may be selling eggs, so won't that be wonderful? The necessity to the facility of a waterfront location. It's not a well, it is a waterfront location. It's just a house. It's a plot for living on, not for anything else. I don't think that point is entirely relevant. The availability of alternative locations for the proposed use, which are not subject to flooding, erosion, or damage. I have to imagine that this speaks to the property. The entire property is 100% floodplain, 100% wetland. In my view, there is no other place to put this on the property. The compatibility of the proposed use with existing and anticipated development. Tiny house on wheels, they are very attractive. Other than the wheels, there really shouldn't be, it should be quite consistent with the neighborhood, if not an improvement. The relationship of the proposed use to the comprehensive plan and floodplain management program for that area. Again, I would defer to Eagle and the determination that what I'm doing isn't going to be a problem. The safety of access to the property in times of flood for ordinary emergency vehicles. This is your point. Again, the point is the tiny house, 10,000-pound tiny house should be able to drive in and drive off. So an ambulance should be okay there. I've already spoken to that. The expected heights, velocity, duration, rate, or rise in sediment transport of the floodwaters and the effects of wave action, if applicable, expected at the site. It's a 100-year floodplain.
Stop one, are we still on point? Are we still answering? Yes. Please do. Okay.
I'm almost done
Please do.
anyways.
I'm just trying to get his.
Yeah.
things
You wanted me
answered.
to finish is what you're saying, really,
Please
because
do.
there's point 11 yet to speak to.
Please do, I'll let you speak. Please
Okay,
do.
the costs of providing governmental service during the after-flood conditions, including maintenance and repair of public utilities and facilities such as sewer, gas, electric, water systems, and streets and bridges. Well, there are no public services other than electric at the property, and I'm the one that's going to have to pay for it. So I think that addresses your questions.
It does, thank you.
Mr. Stepnag, would you like your sheet back?
Did you want the sheet back, or? We're good, thank you.
Thank you.
No reason to return it, thank you, sir. On that, I am going to re-entertain asking for the motion to move forward on this. I did state the reason, and what's the board's pleasure, please?
I'd like to make a motion to deny.
Turn your mic on, please.
Sorry, it's on. I just need the number.
Thank you.
Petition 2024-06, address 32550 26 Mile Road. For the purpose of the denial does not meet the criteria of section 7.15-A, 7.15-C, points 1, 8, and 9, in my opinion, and the lack of information into the location of the home and the standards of the FEMA.
That's not the case. It was supplied to you. You didn't review the
we're in a
record
motion.
properly.
Sir, I gave you time to speak on that.
Yeah.
He made a motion. We need support. I can't bring it back at this juncture. I do
You don't
a
have any
motion.
you don't have any ordinances or orders or regulations governing this board, so you're really just making things up right now.
Sir, I appreciate your time, sir. I appreciate giving you the time to speak. But I do have a motion on the floor, and I'm going to ask for support. Ms.
Mr.
Anderson,
Chairman, if I
please.
may?
Did you want us to, I support it. So we have a motion, we have support. Please.
I would request that the maker of the motion include within that motion how it does not comply with 7.15A and 7.15C, 1, 8, and 9. Just so that the record is clear, because if it does go any further, the
okay.
review will be on the record.
Got it. On section 7.15A, it says improvements to the erection, and the building is not going to be erected on the property. And then on section 7.15C, number 1, the danger to the surrounding areas, in my opinion, is the possibility of a floodplain, and if the septic was your outhouse was to tip or fall over, it can contaminate the grounds. And then 8, is the lack of information in regards to the FEMA standard. It doesn't meet, you say it doesn't meet FEMA,
I
doesn't
did
matter.
not.
You think it's absurd, but it's,
I did not say
I'm not
that.
gonna take
Okay.
questions. I need you to.
I'm
doesn't
actually
meet
speaking
the
to his
standard of
points. He's
FEMA.
speaking to me, and you can raise your hand as much as you want. With no orders or regulations governing this board, I will do so at my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
and
Please, you
this-
could speak, but we're not
and
gonna
then
respond.
in
to
my.
That's fine, your
and
choice.
Also,
Please do.
unit, on 7.15 C.9, the availability of emergency vehicles to access you for fire or safety.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay,
I
I
would speak to
support
those
that.
points, please. Thank you.
Not at this juncture,
Yes,
sir,
at this
no.
juncture, thank you.
1, 8, and 9.
1, 8, and 9, the relationship of proposed use of the
Your
comprehensive.
speaking time is over.
No, it's not,
this
actually. You have no
spot. Please,
regulations
please,
governing
please,
these
please.
procedures. I will
Please.
speak at my leisure. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
No.
Give us 1 minute and I'll let you speak, okay? I do have a motion, I do have support. All in favor of the motion to deny, say aye.
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 Any other additional? The motion has been denied. So let that note in the books that 2024-06 has been denied. I will let you speak. Normally, we will not
You've
speak
denied
on
it. This
issues
is a
that-
waste of time for me to speak on these points, so we'll move on to the next ones.
Thank you so much. Our next one is 2024, number 7, and that is the tiny house on a trailer. That's the way we'll refer to it as. When you're ready, please begin, sir.
You people have mangled this. The entire point of the A was a tiny house on a trailer on the property. You don't understand what's going on before you. And now, as a matter of, for the court, madam, you can imagine what will happen with that. The entire point of 7.15 variance was to install a tiny house on the property.
Okay.
Okay?
Are you done with your,
No, I mean, I just have no idea what to talk to you. You've set the agenda. I've submitted representations to you. You haven't read them. You haven't looked at the plan, which is clearly provided in Appendix E. It's all there. You're just not looking at it.
let me bring it back to the board, and we'll ask any questions if need be. Mr. Barone, I'll let you start off, sir.
I have no questions to item B.
Thank you so much. Mr. Smith, please, sir.
I have no questions.
Bob?
That's correct, no questions.
Ms. Fosberg?
I'll repeat a question that was asked earlier.
Please do.
Are there any drawings or plans for the use of the property that were submitted?
Appendix E. I just find this astounding. You claim that your responsibility at the outset was to review the material and attend the property. When I was in here at the outset, you said that Gary had attended the property. It didn't seem to indicate that you had attended the property.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, do I have the floor?
You have the floor. Please continue.
Thank you. I do not see a drawing in this package.
Can you bring your laptop to me,
No, I
please?
will not.
Well, then you can just
provide-
pretend away as much as you like.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna, 1 minute and I will get back to you, I promise you. Gary, this is nothing to do with credentials. I mean, this is like administrative assistant gonna do this, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. Has there ever been any plans submitted to this date?
Not to the building department.
Thank you. And if it was not submitted to the building department, we would not get it in our packets. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
so your basis for rejecting the existence of my plans is in fact that I did not submit the plans to the building department as a building plan, notwithstanding the fact that that this is placing a vehicle on the property, which does not require a building plan. And so you're entirely ignoring Appendix E. That's wonderful, madam, don't you think, for court purposes?
Please address the chair, please.
No,
Thank you.
no, I'll speak to whomever I like. You should establish some rules that can be FOIA requested for individuals to understand what your processes are.
No problem. We
Good.
will do that. Thank you. Okay, I'm still asking questions. Mr. LaBelle, please.
Very calmly. Just give us a moment, sir.
We will get to the public. I promise we will, sir. We'll get to you in a minute, but we have to follow
You can,
procedure.
not just yet.
Please?
I believe that what we're talking about at this point with, on B, is the actual
Findings
tiny
of
house
law.
on wheels being allowed in an agricultural residential zoning district. Is that correct?
Thank you.
So now we've moved on from the floodplain. Now we're looking at, can you put a thou, nice acronym, on an A1 agricultural residential zoning district?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please do.
this item actually is an appeal of your building official's decision. It was not issued in writing because there were no plans submitted to the township. But he indicated verbally to the applicant that a tiny house on a trailer was not permitted at that location. And he gave in the packet a list of his reasons as to why he did it. And the appeal, what you guys are looking at now, are, do the sections that he cited say what he says they said? Did he cite them correctly? Did he apply them correctly? And did he reach the right conclusions? So it's not whether or not the use can be out there, it's whether or not he was right in saying the
So
use
we're,
could
we're
not.
interpreting his decision correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Interpreting the building department's decision.
Correct. That is correct.
Correct.
Okay, and I
That
do
is-
agree that it was interpreted correctly. And that was the point that I was trying to make. If you do look at our zoning requirements, based upon that and what was presented to us that the building department judged it upon, I agree with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I know you always have at least one question for us.
No further questions.
Not this time? Okay.
So I think I need to add clarity.
Let me get back. I want to make sure everyone
Yeah,
spoke
actually, you
on it.
haven't even heard from me, and we're still,
Sir,
we've just refined what the actual point of this topic was, and I would like an opportunity to speak for it before you go to other people, because there's no point. You are missing the point entirely again.
1 minute here. I believe the only other person is myself. I believe I asked questions, everyone on this issue ready, and I have no questions. I just want to keep the board moving in a constant flow. Sir, you have the floor, please.
So we've come, this point B then is to speak to the questions of law raised by the building officials, and per the normal interpretation, the ordinance, as I think Gary, notwithstanding his lack of education, is probably correct on this subject matter. I mean, you can just read it plainly. A temporary building is only allowed on a temporary basis to be permitted by you. And so, in fact, then I have questions of law about your choices of definitions of what a structure is. So you have defined a house that will engage a dog house. Are you saying that that has to be 1,200 square feet? Your definition of house also engages a car, since it has a roof and supports in which people can live. Does that have to be 1,200 square feet? It's preposterous. Does a chicken coop have to be 1,200 square feet? And so I submit to you that your definition of house is indefinite, and per Michigan courts, the lack of clarity in your definition makes your ordinance subject to interpretation, subject to favoritism. It could be interpreted any way you want. It could be interpreted in a way that ensures that you get your taxation value out of it, even though a tiny house on a trailer will probably be the most effective use of the land, given all the difficulties on the property. So then we also have the issue of minimum square footage, and let me speak at length about that. Again, another taxation strategy, control of taxation, and that's all it is. Michigan courts will grant your ordinances constitutional validity. They come to the court wrapped in assumptions of constitutional validity, absent a showing on my part. The showing on my part is as follows. The reason for minimum square footages, as advanced by townships everywhere, is to preserve property values, to protect the character of the neighborhood. So with respect to property values, housing in Michigan, per Michigan law, a point of law, not a question of laymen who have no education, Gary, the point of Michigan law. You are not a board
know
member, so
nothing-
you will
you
not
know nothing
overspeak
about
me.
my education.
Both of you, I wish
You
you
know
would
nothing
not
about my
stop
education,
the personal
certification, or
attacks.
anything. Yeah, this is a
I wish
personal
you would
attack. I
stop
don't
the
deserve
personal
You
it.
should get a real job, Gary, and
Excuse me,
earn your
sir,
paycheck.
sir.
Mr. Chair, I request.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, there are
No,
no
hold on.
regulations
Can
governing
I
these
ask-
procedures, and you can make as much noise as you like, and I will speak in a manner that suits me.
Sir, we are
Mr.
here-
Chair, I request a recess.
We'll continue on. We'll continue on. You know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave for a minute. You could have a seat. I seen someone raise their hand. We're gonna entertain their question at this time.
I haven't finished
And then-
speaking on this point, and you said that I would
Sir?
speak and then others. No, I will not abandon this podium until I have finished speaking on these points.
Sir,
If you want to leave, go ahead.
sir,
No,
sir, I'm
yeah,
trying
you
to
can keep
move
making
the
as much
meeting
noise as you
along.
want. You should establish orders and regulations in order to govern these procedures.
I'm
I will
going to-
speak, and I will not have my First Amendment right abridged by you, sir.
Sir, I'm not gonna go down those.
Well, we are already on
We are
that
a
path.
CBA.
Yeah, well,
Once again, we are a volunteer group here. They are representatives of the citizens of this community, sir. So I wish you would pay us that respect.
you have shown this variance request no respect. You have no understanding of the subject matter.
I understand it, sir.
You are simply rubber stamping the building official's position.
Sir, we will not rubber stamp them ever. And I would really like to get to that question. Sir, did you have a question? I would really like you to ask at that time if you do.
Well, I just wanted to, I was late, so I didn't hear the whole thing. Is this just a temporary thing, or is this supposed to be permanent in the next 10 years, or 6 months, or a year? Or 2
Permanent.
years? That's all I ask.
We're under the understanding that it's
Please, Sam.
a partial permanent structure.
It's not a structure, sir, it's a vehicle.
Please, we're answering this gentleman's
You
question.
can interrupt me, and then I will interrupt you.
You can
It's a-
interrupt me all you
That
want.
will be the flow of things,
I'll
sir.
readjust my statement. It's a permanent vehicle,
Thank you.
in his term.
In your terms, actually,
No,
per your
I'm
ordinance
just using what you're
definitions,
saying.
they are.
Sir, please.
You slam it as much as you like, sir. If he
Sir,
speaks
sir,
over me,
I'm
then you
not
spoke
going-
over me, and then I speak over you. There is no claim to impropriety on my part that you can
I
make.
understand your concern, sir. Did we answer your question, sir? Thank you. Thank you for coming out this evening. Okay. I'm going to continue on. We have talked about this item. I'm going to Christina on this one. The reason that this item is in front of us is to validate what the Township Building Department has stated. Am I correct in saying that?
It's an appeal of his decision.
He's
The
appealing his
petitioner-
decision.
Right, the petitioner disagrees with the decision that your building official gave him, and he is here asking you to review that decision and overturn it.
And basically, and if I understand this correctly, Gary does make decisions all day long.
Yeah.
And any citizen does have the right to come before us and appeal any decision. Am I correct in saying that?
You're absolutely correct. That
Okay,
is
so
completely within your
basically, we're just
jurisdiction.
handling it in that aspect. We are just seeing, did he make the right decision on this
Mr.
one?
Stepnet, can you
Correct,
please
that's-
summarize my position, why Gary is wrong? Can you state
I
that?
mean, sir, I've asked you once before
Well, you-
not to do personal attacks.
No,
really
no.
appreciate
We are
your-
testing your understanding, which has been demonstrated as deficient, and I'm asking you, sir, this is not a personal attack. If it were a personal attack, I would question your haircut. What I'm asking you is to state your understanding of of my points of questions of law.
Mr. Chairman, that
Please.
is not appropriate.
That's not a
This
point,
is-
sir.
No.
Please, Counselor, please, if you wish.
This is the time for the petitioner to state his reasonings that he believes
Right.
the building official is incorrect. He has submitted a very detailed packet. He can add any additional information to that packet that he wishes for you to consider.
Right.
If you have any questions, as in your normal
That's what we're
course,
doing.
you can ask him with questions. But once he is done with his presentation, and you are done with his questioning him, he has no further right to speak.
Thank you.
And yet I will do so if it suits me. And your claims to the contrary are nonsense, madam. My First Amendment right gives me the
excuse me,
guarantee
sir,
to speak
sir.
as I see, and you as a civil servant will not abridge my First Amendment
I'm
right,
not a
sir.
civil servant.
You
I'm
are
a
a civil
volunteer,
servant
sir.
today. You are acting on behalf of the township.
On that note, I will call for the motion from the board. I believe we understand what we're voting on here. It's been stated several times.
No, it hasn't.
I
You don't
move
understand
forward
it.
on it. I'm looking for a motion regarding petition number 2024-07. That's regarding the tiny house on a trailer, and that is the decision that was made by the Township Building Department on this issue.
I'll make that motion. In ZBA petition 2024-07, an administrative appeal of the interpretation of the prohibition of tiny homes on wheels in the A1 district. I move to deny the appeal.
Request reasons per your counselor's instructions.
Please, we're in this process. Thank you, sir. Continue
I
on,
believe
Mr.
the
Chair.
administrative interpretation is correct and what is permissible within the A1 district.
The questions that I raised, no, I'm going to speak now.
Sir,
The questions
sir,
that I
sir,
raised
sir,
were with
please.
respect to the validity, with respect to Michigan law,
Sir,
with
please.
respect to Michigan law and federal law.
Sir.
Your interpretations within the ordinances themselves are irrelevant.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I have support? Support. Any questions or concerns on the motion?
Do you understand the motion?
We are affirming that the Township Building Department or the building administrator made the proper decision.
I did not hear from the other members. I've only heard from one person on the board, and you have not collected everyone's vote.
We did not vote as of yet. We do have a motion. We do have support. Everyone does understand the motion. Am I correct? Correct. Am I correct? Okay, I'm gonna call for the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Rules properly on his decision. We believe Gary had make a proper decision on,
You have not ruled with respect to my questions. You can say that as much as you like. I'll have it referred back to you by a court.
please do, sir.
I will bounce back and forth. That's the benefit of self-representation.
I'm going to move on to the last one. Counselor, can you help me with that one? You said that's something regarding law, and I'm a little bit lost in that area.
Yes.
Thank you.
This particular variance request is a request to allow a tiny home on a trailer on this piece of property. It is a use request rather than a dimensional request. The general requests you see that come before you with respect to setbacks or height, those are dimensional. The use has already been set and it's already established in the ordinance and it's already permitted. This request is for a use that is not permitted. Unfortunately, Chesterfield Township does not have the legal authority to grant use requests. First and foremost, section 7.2B of your ordinance establishes your jurisdiction, okay? It does not provide jurisdiction for the ZBA to consider or grant use variances. Specifically, 7.2E states, as used in this chapter, a variance is authorized only for height, area, and size of structure, or size of yards, open spaces, and those listed in 76-612.
Which doesn't exist.
Establishment or expansion of a use otherwise prohibited shall not be allowed by variance. Going further, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act at 125.3101 et sec provides the Zoning Board of Appeals shall have the authority to grant non-use variances relating to the construction, structural changes, or alterations of buildings or structures related to dimensional requirements of a zoning ordinance, okay? You are only allowed to grant use variances if, one, as of February 15, 2006, the township had an ordinance in place that used the phrase use variance or variances from uses of land, and the township had granted a use variance before February 16, 2006. The Township Planning Department conducted an extensive search, and there's without a doubt that this township had not granted a use variance prior to February 15, 2006, and you never had an ordinance in place that permitted this ZBA to grant a use variance. So based on your ordinance and based on Michigan statutory law, you do not have the authority to grant this variance. Given that, you still have the obligation to allow him to come before you and request it.
Thank you, Counselor. At this stage, any questions for council? Anybody? Nothing? Over this side? You want anything, Gary? No? Good. This is really not a need for a question on him. It's more or less an interpretation.
Unfortunately, you've missed the point. You've
excuse
entirely,
me.
no, you can
Sir,
say,
sir.
excuse, I will speak over you, and if you speak over me, then I will speak over you.
I want to refer to my, counsel.
You've heard from her extensively, her point is on the
one
record.
point,
There are
sir.
numerous emails on this subject, all of which you have not read.
Sir, 1 point from her, please.
The petitioner still has a right to address this board with respect to his request.
Okay. I will go through our normal question process on that. Did you
No,
wish-
I will speak to it first,
Please do,
actually.
please do,
Thank you,
please do.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
The ordinance itself references 76-612. The best I can find is a page reference. The page reference is something to condominiums. I think if it's a section 76-612 doesn't exist. Your ordinance in that respect is indefinite. The ordinances give you the power to reconstruct the regulations as you like. I think that is quite inappropriate. The most that you can do today is find that, as I have submitted, that due to the reference to 76-612, the ordinance is indefinite, and the section being struck out will then effectively create a use variance. With respect to Michigan statutory law, the statutory law does in fact permit use variances. It's simply a question of whether the township has done that. By failing to write your ordinances in an effective manner, you have effectively created a use variance. And that is my point on that subject.
Any questions at this time, Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. LaBelle? No, thank you. Ziki? Mr. Barone? Okay. The chair does not have any questions on this, since we're handling as a public hearing. Anyone in the public wish to address it, please come forward. Once again, anybody wish to address it, please come forward. Anything else you wish to state at this time, sir?
No, thank you.
Counselor, anything you wish to add?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Would the counselor wish to speak to my points so that you can better inform yourselves with respect to the law?
I don't believe that is part of, we wanted to go down the road.
It's not in your advantage, basically, is what you're saying.
We are working on this request at this stage. We have went through our process. I am going to call for the motion. Do we understand the motion on that, how we wanted to phrase it?
At this point, we really, there's nothing we can, a motion to not take action?
Counselor?
No, there'll need to be a motion to either
Lack of authority to
approve the
rule.
variance or deny the variance because lack of jurisdiction within your ordinance and lack of statutory authority.
Okay. We have a little clarification on that. Please, someone move with a motion.
Lack of jurisdiction within your ordinance to grant the use variance and lack of statutory authority to grant the use variance.
Mr. Smith, you wish to? Okay, please do. Thank you.
In ZBA petition number 2024-08, I have moved to dismiss the,
It either needs to be approved or deny.
deny the request based on lack of statutory authority to address the issue.
I do have a motion. Do I have
I'll
support?
support that.
Any additional concerns on it? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are done with this part of it. Thanks, folks, for coming out for this particular issue. We have several more issues we wish to address this evening, so we're going to move along on the agenda. Counselor, I believe you are free to leave at your pleasure. Thank you for showing up, and hopefully we could get someone else from your office here next time, you know? Okay, exciting, exciting. Okay, thank you so much. We do have a new member and a new alternate. Anything you wish to enlighten about yourself to us at this stage? And
Yeah,
please, 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 please.
I'd just like to thank Ty for, starting me off with this meeting here. It's a learning experience, and you're correct, I'm not okay.
Yeah,
I'll
we're
just
good. Just between us. it's-
Yep.
We,
Just say thank you, and lifelong resident of the township, so.
Good. Yeah, we always do that when we get a new member, and just different. Yourself, I know you're the alternate. Anything you want to state to us this evening?
I'm the alternate. My name's Jacob Kashik. I've been living in Chesterfield for over 10 years now. I'm a junior at the University of Michigan studying computer engineering.
Super,
And
super.
I'm excited to work alongside you guys on this township board. I'm hoping I can be a voice for young adults in this community.
Thank you, thank you for, thank you, thank you. We do have meeting minutes from our last meeting. Has everyone read it?
Mr. Chair,
Please do.
I'll make a motion to approve the ZBA minutes of the April 10, 2024 meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have support?
Support.
All in favor, say an aye. Aye. Mr. Smith, can you please sign off? I believe it's the secretary's job of doing that great honor. Gary, anything you wish to add? What's happening in the community? Anything exciting or?
I have nothing to add at this
Nothing to
time.
add. I mean, that's a good meeting. Nothing to add at this stage. Super, super. Anything additional from my right?
Nothing from
Anything additional from my left?
No.
Any comments from the floor? It is on the agenda. Okay. I will move to item number 10. If everyone could read that one. It'll be a good evening.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor,